I remember holding my wife as she died. Claire was 36 years old. She'd had cancer for 7 years. I was 33 when she died, and I've been a carer for 7 years leading up to that point. And we also had a very young daughter as well. She was 6 when Claire died. And I remember holding her. And then I remember Rebecca, our daughter, coming in about an hour later, and I sat one side of Claire and Rebecca sat the other side, and we held our hands and we talked together, we laughed together, we prayed, we cried a lot. And then I took little Rebecca by the hand and it was time to go home. So we went out of the hospital, and I just remember walking out onto the very, very busy street, everybody rushing by, everybody lost in their own world. And I stood there holding little Rebecca's hand, and I remember thinking, what am I going to do now? My life was completely over. My heart was broken. I had no sense at all of any hope for the future. I thought my world had ended, and I was just left there with a little girl to care for. And then we get a verse in scripture like Isaiah chapter 35 verse 1 that says this: "The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and bloom." Now, I think we all go through hard times in life, don't we? We all go through times when life feels like a real desert experience, where everything is just arid and dry, and we are thirsty and we are worn out and we are exhausted. And at times like that, those desert experiences of life, we need hope, don't we? We need hope. Have you ever seen the film Salmon Fishing in the Yemen? If you haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to ruin the plot for you, but really check it out. It's a fantastic movie. But without ruining the ending for you, well, the hint is in the title, Salmon Fishing in the Yemen. It's about a team of people who are in the desert in the Yemen, and they want to introduce freshwater salmon there and to nurture them and to create a lake for them and waterfalls that the salmon can jump up and all sorts of things. And it's basically the story of them creating this kind of miraculous oasis in the desert where fish and vegetation can thrive. And it's a beautiful story of hope and vision. So this verse from Isaiah 35 kind of reminds me of that. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and bloom. And this verse was written during a very, very difficult time of Israelite history, when it was about 700 BC and there was political unrest in the nation. The religious institutions were failing, social structures were rupturing, people were feeling very marginalized and very run down, and they were waiting for a Messiah to come and liberate them. They wanted hope for the future, and out of their desire for hope come these words: the desert shall rejoice and bloom. And then, of course, Jesus comes, and the desert of people's lives did bloom. People were healed, people were raised from the dead, people heard Jesus teaching and had their lives transformed. And the truth is, for all of us, I think, that when we go through desert times in our lives, when we invite Jesus into our world, the desert regions of our lives are transformed. Maybe not immediately, maybe it takes a long time for that to happen. But as we allow Jesus into the desert experiences that we go through, the desert blooms and new life does eventually come to pass. Jesus, in John chapter 10, verse 10, one of my favorite verses of scripture, Jesus says, "I have come so that you may have life in all its fullness." And that's a beautiful promise for us, a beautiful promise for you if you are going through a difficult time right now, that Jesus has come so that you may have life. No matter where you are at the moment, no matter how much of a desert experience your life is, Jesus has come so that eventually, at the right time, you will have life in all its fullness. There's no limit to what Jesus can do in our lives. But you know, deserts don't just bloom on their own. salmon fishing in the Yemen shows that in order to create an oasis like they did, it was extremely hard work. They had to get the vision, they had to make the plans, they had to get the finances together, they had to instigate the work, they had to gather the team, they had to get all the infrastructure, and then of course they had to fly the fish over them and nurture them. It didn't just happen overnight. This flourishing, this blooming in the desert didn't just happen overnight. But after time and after effort, the vision gave way to the miracle. And I think it's good for us to remember when we are going through a desert time in life that Jesus, of course, does it all on the cross for us. But there is still a spiritual work that we need to put in as well. If we want to know life in all its fullness, we rely on Jesus, but we must also put in the work of prayer and Bible study and meditation and taking time out to be still with God. And if we do that, over time, our lives become transformed and the desert region of our lives begins to bloom. So if you're going through a difficult time at the moment, I would say you need to be patient. You need to wait on God. You need to put in the spiritual work. And if you do that, then God will, over time, transform your life and the desert will bloom. One of the amazing jobs I've had in my past, I've been a vicar now for 33 years and I've worked in loads of different parishes and overseas, and I've also been on faculty at Cambridge University as a theology lecturer as well. Lovely place to be. And I don't know if you've ever been to Cambridge and seen the colleges, or maybe you've seen pictures of them, but they've got beautiful lawns in the quads. The grass is absolutely immaculate if ever you've seen them. And I was up there some time ago and I was chatting to one of the gardeners and I said to him, how do you get the grass looking so immaculate, so perfect all the time? And he said to me, do you know what? It's dead easy to do. All you've got to do is mow the grass in this direction every week for a year, and then mow the grass in this direction every week for a year. And do that for 150 years and your grass will start looking good. And it was just a kind of great reminder to me of the need for patience and the need to put the work in over a period of time. And as we do that, so we begin to see the transformation. So if you want to be transformed, if you're going through a bit of a desert time at the moment, if you're maybe feeling arid and dry in your spirituality, if you're struggling with grief and bereavement or relationship problems or financial difficulties, or whatever it is that you might be struggling with in life, then hold on, I would say, to Isaiah 35 verse 1. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and bloom. It's a beautiful promise from God to you that where you're at now isn't the end, but that there is a future of hope waiting for you. If you want spiritual transformation, then wait on God, but also put in the spiritual work yourself. Prayer, Bible study, meditation, taking time out to be still with God. If you do that, you will see transformation in your life.